which indeed I want to concur with Honorable Singh that it makes it very difficult to prepare for meetings and to interrogate the report. Thank you.
Honorable Kisa, what time did you receive it today?
You know, when we had a meeting at about 12:30 as the small parties, I requested the Honorable Singh, Secretary, to email to me. I just received when I was getting to the house. So I haven't perused the report as such.
Well, the minutes were distributed, honourable members, electronically last night, and it's important for members of Parliament to make use of these important devices that everybody acquired from Parliament. You have your smartphones, you have your laptops, you have your iPads, and we distributed, the Secretary said last night, 8 o'clock. I also received it more or less that time when I opened my emails last night, and we'll take our time to go through the report that basically contains the capturing the discussions as it went up to Thursday. There's no findings and recommendations in there because we don't expect staff to develop findings and recommendations for members of Parliament. So that is where we are, and we will continue with the meeting. The agenda of the meeting have been circulated. Can I get a member to move and propose the adoption of this agenda for this meeting? Honourable Ngobo, seconded by the Honourable Gamede. Honourable members, are there any apologies? Honourable Kwankwa?
No, your last point sits very unwell with me. It seeks to suggest that these documents were emailed to us and therefore we did make time to read them. I did not receive the document. I have my iPad with me here. And even though we received the agenda, but I didn't receive the rest of the documents. Now the public will sit there and think that we very disorganized in the opposition. These documents were sent, we didn't read them. I think that's unfortunate, and that's incorrect.
Honourable Kwankwa, I'm not going to entertain a discussion on the matter. The fact of the matter is that it was sent out last night, and I'm not addressing the opposition as far as this is concerned. It's pertaining to all members, because there were also hands going up this side. So let us not view it that the distribution of the document or anything had something particular or peculiar to do with the opposition. That was definitely not the intention. The minutes of the meeting of the 29th of July have been circularized. I now want to draw the attention of the members to those minutes of the 29th of July. Have all members received these minutes? 29, they've received it. I'm going to deal with the minutes page by page. The first page in terms of the membership of the committee, all names are reflected, all parties are correctly reflected. If not, please indicate. Another copy here, please. I'm glad you're very specific.
Chairperson, I'd just like to know if this is the final minutes, because we are 10 minutes ago we received documents saying this is the final document. You know, so I think this point must be taken note of quite seriously. Honourable Kwankwa makes a good point that, you know, if we are asked to participate in this meeting on an informed basis, then documentation must be made available to us on time. We got this document 5 minutes ago.
I'll ask the Secretary to respond as to when those minutes were distributed. I'm told, can you just respond? I'm told there was an electronic copy that was sent, and thereafter a hard copy was also given of the same minutes. The minutes were electronically distributed. The Secretary then made hard copies of the document, so it's exactly the same of the electronic one that was distributed earlier. Is that correct, Secretary?
I'm not speaking to the minutes. I'm speaking to this document.
The same document.
This here.
The report is the same report.
Different from what we've got.
It's the same report. Honourable members, page 2 of the minutes of the 29th. We'll first check for corrections. Are there any corrections on page 2? Any corrections on page 3? Honourable Mulder.
Yes, Chairperson. On page 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth bullet from the bottom says the committee agreed that it was common cause that the pool was a swimming pool. That's correct. But then it goes on to say it was a swimming pool, and then it goes on to say whose primary function was to extinguish fire, although it could still be used for recreational purposes. The committee surely never agreed to that. Maybe the ANC did, but the committee didn't. The primary objective of the swimming pool.
No, there was no agreement. There was no agreement on that.
Correct.
There were discussions around
Yes.
the pool being a facility that can be used for both purposes. Right? And I think it must just be reflected like that. You can note that correction. The fifth bullet. Any other corrections? Honourable Swart?
Yeah, I'm concerned about Superintendent Linda on page 2 at the bottom. He seems to have been superintended.
Page?
2 at the bottom, line 3. Maybe there's just a small typing error there, Chair.
Superintendent. Superintendent. There. Yes.
The third bullet from the bottom. Members of the opposition were not convinced that Senior Superintendent Linda acted on his own accord. They alleged that he was under political pressure or was indeed given the authority that he claimed to have. I don't recall us ever traversing those aspects at all.
What was the intention?
The point was simply that he signed a letter PPing for the divisional commissioner.
Superintendent Linda PP'd a letter for the provincial, so divisional commissioner. Anything else on page 3? Honourable Kubai.
Thanks, Chairperson. I'm just going to make some comments. I'm not so sure if it's how we should capture it, and I would want some assistance from the committee members. There are instances where in the minutes within the same page 3, for example, on the bullet point 3, where it says members of the opposition, should we specify where it's like members of the opposition, members of the ruling party? I felt that it was just a bit not correct. Shouldn't we just say maybe where there is no consensus, some members raised, like in other bullets? Because I find it not correct to have.
What is your proposal?
My proposal is that we have some members.
Some members.
Instead of saying members of the opposition, members of the ruling party.
Anything else? Page 4.
Page 4, Chairperson, last bullet. It says, it's minuted there, but it's only half of the truth. It says, with regard to the appointment of Mr. Makanya and the role played by the President, some members were of the view that there was no inconclusive evidence that the President had any role in the appointment and that such claims should be dismissed as unfounded, comma. However, other members were absolutely convinced that there's a direct link. That could also be said. It's not there. This is one-sided. It's not the truth.
Is there any comment, honourable members? We'll insert that part at the end of that sentence. Just make sure you put in the correct wording there. Page 5, any corrections?
Yes, Chairperson, page 5, before the resolution, second last bullet. I'm not convinced that the committee ever agreed not to delve into the matter involving Mr. Makanya because of the court case. It was mentioned at some stage, but there was no agreement that because of that we will not look into Mr. Makanya. As a matter of fact, some of us proposed that he should be allowed to come and testify in front of the committee.
Yes, honourable.
I think what we should put it, because there was caution that the matter of Mr. Makanya is before the court. He's currently charged in the High Court. That was the issue. And caution was that we should be able to take cognizance of that if we are to call him. So I'm not so sure how to craft it, but I think, as Honourable Menda is saying, maybe it's not an issue that there was an agreement, but there was an issue of caution that was put through.
That caution then was expressed by some members.
Yes, I think the Honourable Swart expressed the view. It was said in the meeting that issue the words delve too deep was used in the meeting.
Just say, Chair, some members express caution not to delve too deep.
Expressed caution. Yeah.
Some members express caution.
It then covers your point, Honourable Swart. Honourable Mulder, are you happy with that? Anything else? The minutes having been corrected, can I get a member to move for the adoption of these minutes as a true reflection of the meeting that took place on the 29th? The Honourable Kamede moves. Seconder? The Honourable Maseko. Are there any matters arising out of these minutes, Honourable members? Any matters arising? There's no matters arising. We then go to the minutes of the 30th of July that members received these minutes timelessly to be able to engage on it. 30th of July. That was the meeting that took place on Thursday. You'll recall this was the meeting that was basically convened to get feedback from the smaller group of members who went to engage with regard to any person or persons still to be called to this committee. It's a very short minute. There was a long discussion. I'll start with corrections. Honourable Swart.
Chair, I regrettably have to say that I did propose that the public protector be called, but then it was pointed out that I'm a non-voting member.
Where's
so
that?
It's on paragraph 3.
Page 2?
Paragraph 3. So it was, in fact, the proposal was then brought by Honourable Singh. You can say Honourable Swart proposed the public protector be called, but in view of him
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
You indicated that as a non-voting member you cannot make that proposal, and the Honourable Singh then took responsibility for that. Is that correct, Honourable Swart? Okay. Page 3. Yes.
Same paragraph. After the issue, that paragraph, that part has been corrected. Members of the ruling party objected. I think I made the first objection and it was supported. So I think it needs to be recorded as well.
Where is that, Honourable Kubai?
Not the ruling parties. Same paragraph 3, committee resolution.
Yes.
Just after that part of Honourable Swart that has been corrected, where it ends, currently it ends, the proposal was supported by Honourable Singh. Then the sentence starts with members of the ruling party. And that's the sentence, Chair. I'm requesting that it be amended.
Amended to read?
That the objection, remember the...
Objection by the Honourable
Yes.
Kubai. Can we just record the name of the member there who objected to the proposal? Page 3. Anything on page 3? Honourable Singh.
Chairperson, I think there too, where Honourable Swart's name is mentioned, I think
Yes.
Honourable Steenhuisen was, he seconded that proposal. And then, Chair, I think after that last, before adjournment, did you not indicate that the staff will be asked to prepare a report, which will be tabled at the next meeting as part of the records of that meeting?
Correct. Yes, Honourable Kubai.
Thanks, Chair. Same correction on page 3 in terms of the resulting, after by Honourable Swart, which is now corrected to read Honourable Steenhuisen. An objection was read by the ruling party. I think it needs to be corrected.
Okay. Anything else? Any further corrections? No further corrections. Can I get a proposal for the adoption of the minutes? Yes, Honourable Member.
Sorry, Honourable Chair. No, I've just noted that I am not a part of these people that have attended. Although I would love not to be part, but I mean, unfortunately, I was present in this meeting of the 29th.
All that the member
It's
is
just that I've just joined.
All that the member is saying that he was present in the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all I'm saying.
We'll insert that. Is there someone who will propose the adoption of these minutes? Honourable Kubai, seconded by Honourable Gamere. Are there any matters arising? There's no matters arising, and we dispense of the minutes then. We now come to the draft report that has been circulated to all the members, and we'll go through the report page by page. Are there members who require a few minutes to go through some of the pages in that report? I can give you a few minutes, and I can ask the others to enjoy a cup of tea while you do that. Shall do that? We'll give you 10 minutes, honourable members, so that you can look at the report, and then we will start the meeting again. We'll just suspend business then for 10 minutes. Thank you.
All right, you've been watching the live proceedings, of course, from Parliament, where the Nkandla Adhoc Committee was discussing the minutes of their report following their findings on the Nkandla upgrades after the Police Minister's report on the very same security upgrades. Now, here's what you need to know, that since the committee comprised of different political parties within the legislation to be part of this ad hoc committee, and you'll remember also that the EFF had voluntarily withdrew from being a part of the committee, they have to go through, of course, the terminology and wording of their final draft report as a committee, so as to make sure that when they table the report before the National Assembly, they should all be in agreement with the contents of the report as a joint committee. We're going to take a quick ad break. We'll have more news when we return. This is SABC News.
We kick off this week's show by seeing how Kenyans are paying tribute to the victims, as well as not only how they've coped, but how they returned stronger after the attacks.
Last year, images of the 4-day Westgate Mall attack saturated front pages.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, artists have assembled to celebrate the peace this war-torn country has not had in a long time.
No conflict that can't be solved without a conversation.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
SABC News seeks to be the biggest, the most extensive and diverse news organization on the continent. Our mission is to provide accurate and credible news and current affairs programming throughout the day. We are committed to covering every part of the continent. We reflect the world to Africa and Africa to the world. SABC News, Africa's news leader. Now available throughout the continent.
This is PM News. Welcome back. Let's quickly recap the leading stories this hour. Economic freedom fighters leader Julius Malema's fraud and corruption trial has been provisionally struck off the roll. This after constant delays in the trial, which according to Malema's lawyers prejudiced their client. However, this move allows the state to reinstate corruption as well as other charges when it's ready to do so. One of the accused in the Mido Masia murder trial has been acquitted of all charges. Constable Walter Ramatlo was one of the 9 accused facing charges related to the death of the Mozambican taxi driver. He was at the Davidton police station when a badly injured Masia was brought in. Firefighters have gained some ground against a wildfire that has ravaged drought-parched terrain in Northern California. The blaze, dubbed the Rocky Fire, has destroyed more than 62,000 acres as well as 50 structures. And in your sports news, South Africa's Cameron van der Burg became the first male swimmer to set a world record at this year's World Championships on Tuesday. He lowered his own 50-meter breaststroke mark to secure a semi-final berth in style. The 26-year-old defending champion touched the wall in 26.62 seconds. Welcome back. The ANC Women's League's elective conference that starts tomorrow is expected to look at challenges facing women around the globe. The League has admitted that it previously focused on internal matters and did not emphasize global debate. One of the issues women are grappling with around the world is leadership. The former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is currently campaigning for nominations to be the Democrats' presidential candidate.
On day one as president, I will set 2 ambitious national goals that will test our capacities, but that I know are within our reach.
The U.S. former Secretary of State making a case for her campaign to be the U.S. president, but she needs to be nominated by the Democrats. If she is, she'll be on the ballot for the U.S. presidential elections next year.
Hillary Clinton is saying, I'm standing. And then it starts the other way around. And then she contests with those men. And then she almost makes it. I wish she makes it this time around.
South Africa is facing a similar debate around a female president. The League says this issue cannot be ignored anymore.
I can assure both the media and business, in my political speech for conference, I have raised it. Because it's been raised, because I have to tell women at conference to say, hey, if you say you want to lead society, society is already ahead. It says we have to answer to the women's president.
AU Commission Chair Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma will lead discussions on global debates. The League has meanwhile called on women to avail themselves for positions at the international institutions. The government is considering putting policy in place to assist South Africans working at these institutions.
This issue of South Africa not being well represented at the AU level to start with, at the UN level and so forth, is being discussed in cabinet. And the issue here is really that, again, there are some challenges that we are facing there. South African people in nature actually have higher benefits than those who are at AU, those who are at UN as well. And therefore, when they leave South Africa and go there, there's going to be a policy adjustment on how you then augment to their benefits. And therefore, this is something that the cabinet is still dealing with. We know that because we've been talking about this particular matter, as well as, on representativity. Those of our women, she's probably not quite at the level of the deputy president where she was right now, but it's a position that we respect and that we think that we need to be there as South Africa. Both Mama Geraldine and them. So that issue is the one that's a bit of a challenge for now.
Women's leagues from around the continent are expected to attend the conference. Among them, ZANU-PF Women's League President Grace Mugabe. Sophie Mukwena, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Abroad now, the United Nations member states have agreed on an agenda for the world's sustainable development over the next 15 years that pledges to leave no one behind. The new goals will be formally adopted by world leaders at a summit in September to be addressed by Pope Francis. They replace 8 Millennium Development Goals, or MDGs.
After 2 weeks of final negotiations, the Sustainable Development Agenda of 17 goals and the declaration that covers implementation and review were agreed by the consensus. The 8 old MDGs had helped focus attention on the needs of poor nations for the past 15 years. The new Sustainable Development Goals will aim to eradicate hunger and extreme poverty, reduce inequality within and between states, achieve gender equality, improve water management and energy, and take urgent action to combat climate change.
The outcome document is called, quote, Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And it is a roadmap to ending global poverty, building a life of dignity for all, and leaving no one behind. It is also a clarion call to intensify efforts to heal our planet for the benefit of these and future generations. It greatly expands upon the success of the Millennium Development Goals. It contains with 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are integrated, interlinked, and indivisible. In many ways, these goals, global goals, represent a to-do list for people and the planet.
The goals would cost between 3.3 and 4.5 trillion US dollars a year in state spending, investment and aid. More than 100 countries agreed on a framework in Ethiopia last month to bankroll the new goals. This by mobilizing domestic resources such as taxes, leverage private investment, and channel foreign assistance. World leaders will meet in September at the UN to formally adopt the new Sustainable Development Agenda.
And now to the Ukraine, where there's still no progress on the ceasefire agreement between Russia and the Ukraine. Envoys from the two countries gathered in Minsk last night to discuss critical issues regarding a prisoner swap, but both sides remain deeply divided.
After last night's meeting, Ukraine and Russia are still on the fence about a prisoner swap and withdrawing more weapons from the front line. So far, only weapons of over 100mm caliber have been withdrawn from the line. Meanwhile, Ukraine on Monday reported the death of 4 soldiers in widespread clashes with pro-Russian rebels. The latest clash happened just hours before a fresh round of talks. Ukraine's military says another 15 servicemen were wounded in the past 24 hours of fighting across the eastern province of Donetsk. The increase in clashes and counterattacks have frustrated Western efforts to resolve the crisis. Since 2014, about 6,800 people have died and at least another 1.4 million have been left homeless. The war has both crippled the ex-Soviet state's economy and Western relations with Russia.
Relief efforts are underway in India's eastern state of West Bengal, where floods have left about 50 people dead.
Flash floods caused by incessant rainfall submerge houses and shops, forcing people to move to makeshift shelters. More than 40 relief centers have opened across the state. Authorities say the inflow of rainwater from West Bengal has added to the woes of people living in Odisha. On Monday, the villagers complained about the government's lack of assistance in the wake of the floods. Annual monsoon season is vital for India as half its cropland lacks irrigation. The rain supports about 2/3 of India's 1.25 billion population who live in rural areas and rely on farming. However, excessive rains cause many problems such as floods, landslides and waterborne diseases.
Still in India, Indian rescuers have pulled 6 people out alive from debris of a collapsed building on the outskirts of the western city of Mumbai. At least 4 people were feared dead and several others injured after a 3-story residential building imploded. Authorities say nearly 17 people could still be trapped under the rubble. India's National Disaster Response Force, the NDRF, said the injured had been rushed to nearby hospitals. The reason for the building collapse is still unknown, but it was 50 years old and in a dilapidated state. Building collapses have been regular affair in India, where many buildings are constructed illegally without following proper building practices or executing proper safety measures. Firefighters have gained some ground against a wildfire that has ravaged drought-parched terrain in Northern California. The blaze, dubbed the Rocky Fire, has destroyed more than 62,000 acres and 50 structures. More than 9,000 firefighters, many of them reinforcements from out of state, were dispatched to California. A third of that force was assigned to the Rocky Fire alone, along with 19 water-dropping helicopters and 4 airplane tankers. The California Department of Forestry and Fire Prevention says evacuation orders were in place for the more than 13,000 people living in over 5,530 residences. No serious injuries have been reported, and what sparked the Rocky Fire remains under investigation. France's Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve says he has called on Britain to provide more help in dismantling illegal immigration networks. This as the two countries deepen cooperation to tackle a migrant crisis at the French port of Calais.
The city has become a focal point for a huge influx of migrants entering Europe to escape poverty and violence in Middle East and Africa, with thousands seeking to make illegal and dangerous crossing into England via Channel Tunnel. Britain's Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond said the UK has a grip on migrant situation in French port of Calais. Hammond says more guards will be deployed in its Eurotunnel terminal, and measures employed so far were already having an effect.
I think we have got a grip on the crisis. We saw a peak last week, since when the number of illegal migrants has tailed off. We've taken a number of measures in collaboration with the French authorities and Eurotunnel, which are already having an effect, and over the next day or two I would expect to have an even greater effect. Border Force personnel in the control room, more fencing in place, additional guards hired. All of those things will slow down the flow, and we will deal with this problem.
Meanwhile, more than 500 migrants have arrived at the Sicilian port of Palermo in Italy. 5 bodies were found on board another ferry that was rescued on Sunday in Sicilian Channel, carrying another 107 migrants.
In Karachi, in Pakistan, a man has been hanged. Shafqat Hussain, who's 17, angered rights groups after his lawyers argued that he was arrested as a juvenile, and his family said he had been tortured by police into confessing. Hussain was arrested in 2004. He was 14 years old at the time and was convicted for abducting and murdering a 7-year-old boy. According to lawyers, Hussain's family did not keep records regarding his birth. Hanging someone who committed a crime as a juvenile is illegal under Pakistani law. Hussain's mother said the family only learned that he had been sentenced to death after his initial trial was over, and they could not afford the 30,000 rupees demanded by a private lawyer to contest the case in the High Court. Defense lawyers appointed by the courts for those too poor to pay for one often don't show up for trials. Breaking taboo, Jerusalem Palestinians are seeking Israeli citizenship in the
Honourable members, we are ready to proceed. Return to the draft report and we'll go also through the report page by page. If there are any correction that you wish to make, please do so. If there's any specific point that you want to focus on and to clarify, put up your hand and we'll do so that we can go through this as easily as possible. I'm now on page 1. The heading is the draft report of the Adhoc Committee to consider the report of the Minister of Police in reply to recommendations in the report of the Adhoc Committee to consider the report by the President regarding security upgrades at Nkandla private residence of the President dated the 4th of August 2015. Then we start with the introduction that basically captures the resolution of the National Assembly on the 2nd of June 2015. The resolution is stated there to consider the report by the Minister of Police, tabled on the 28th of May 2015 in reply to recommendations in the report of the Adhoc Committee to consider the report by the President regarding security upgrades at Nkandla private residence of the President as adopted by the National Assembly on 30 November 2014. Bullet point 2 indicates then that there will be 14 voting members, as indicated. And then also, under 3, the 16 non-voting members. And the resolution also stated that the committee will exercise those powers in Rule 138 and the rules applicable to the committees and subcommittees generally that may assist it in carrying out its functions. And also then to submit a report to the House with its findings and recommendations where applicable by the 7th of August 2015. Then reference is made that the report by the Minister of Police served as the base document for consideration by the Adhoc Committee. There's a double the. Remove the second the. Is there any other corrections on page 1, Honourable Mulder?
Yes, just Chairperson, that last paragraph, I'm not sure what it means. It says the Minister of Police's report served as the base document. In whose opinion did the committee take such a decision? Was it the opinion of the majority? I'm trying to understand exactly what we are saying there. Because obviously others had a different meaning, that other reports should also be relevant and should also be considered by the committee.
Honourable Lakude.
Thank you, Chairperson. With due respect, Honourable Mulder, we dealt with the other reports in the previous Adhoc committee and they are mentioned there. So now we've been dealing with the report of the Minister of Police. Hence, it appears here. Thanks.
Honourable Mulder.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm familiar with that view. That is the view of the ruling party. That is not the view of other members of the committee. We differ from that. So I'm just asking, what is the base for that statement in the report?
Honourable Smith.
No, thanks, Chair. I think what we should do, Chair, is if there is a member or members that have a different view, let them put the proposal on the table. The normal way we deal with these matters, if there's a deadlock, we look at the 3 or 4 options and we take the best option. Now, this might be an option, and Mr. Mulder is saying it might be the ANC or the majority party's option. Maybe he should put his option on the table, or anybody else's option. Whether there are 4 or 5 options, let's put them on the table and let's deal with them. But we can't turn around on every line and say whose decision or whose option it is. I'm suggesting people should put an alternative and then let us, through the normal meeting procedures, eliminate and get to a view that is held by the majority of members of the House, if I could put it that way. Thanks, Chair. And I think that way we'll go much quicker.
Honourable Mulder.
Chairperson, we can do that. We can do that throughout the report, but obviously then we will need some time to do that. I did receive the report last night, 8 o'clock, but I did not intend to sleep and dream about Nkandla last night. I had better things to do, with all due respect. I didn't read the report last night, and I didn't intend to do so. So if you want us to do that in terms of that kind of proposal, then you should give us time to make different formulations. All I'm saying at this stage is I do not want a report to say as a factual statement that the Minister of Police's report was the base, by implication, excluding other reports.
Honourable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think the heading of this draft report says it all, because it was taken from the resolution of the House. Draft report of the Adhoc committee to consider the report of the Minister of Police in reply to recommendations in the report of the Adhoc committee to consider the report by the President regarding security upgrades at the Nkandla private residence of the President dated 4th of August 2015. Chairperson, the heading makes that report to be the base document. Thank you very much. I submit.
Honourable Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on this point, I think it brings into question what was the minister tasked to do and by whom? Now, if you look at the 2nd of June resolution, the House tasked us to look at the report of the Minister of Police. That's 100%. We all agree. So it was a fact that we looked at that report, which is contained in this. Yeah, it's a fact. But that arose from the 13th of November, 2014. What were the recommendations of the House on the 13th of November, 2014? Because that is where he derived the mandate from, right? In November 2014, we wanted a technical team of qualified security experts, etc., which the minister did. He put together, he convened them. Perfect, no problem. So that House resolution was given effect to, he produced the report. But also on that date, the committee recommends that the matter of what constitutes security and non-security upgrades at the President's private residence be referred back to Cabinet for determination by the relevant security experts in line with the Cabinet memorandum. Cabinet must report back to Parliament on the steps taken to give effect to this recommendation. So are we saying that the Minister represented Cabinet when he presented the report? I asked this question before. So that we are clear on the mandate that the Minister was given and what were his terms of reference moving forward.
Honourable Dlakude.
Thank you, Chairperson. I don't expect the whole cabinet to come before Parliament to present a report. The relevant minister responsible for security or for protection of the executive will be the one coming to report to Parliament. And that is what the Minister of Police did. So that report is the one that we've been dealing with. The report of the minister responding to the recommendations of the previous Adhoc committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think once again, that question could have been raised when the terms of reference, which are contained on the heading of the establishment of this particular Adhoc committee was. So that was adopted by the House, became a resolution of our House, and we are here to adopt, we're here mandated to look at that report, which forms the base, as a base document for us to deliberate.
Honourable Singh?
No, Chairperson, I agree. But it was raised. It's not that it was not raised. Just for clarity in our minds, I raised it. Particularly. Just for clarity, we are saying that there were House resolutions of the 13th of November, and if I read them correctly, the Minister responded on behalf of Cabinet, not a problem, with regard to Resolution 5.9 and 513. Those were the two resolutions which gave him the mandate to proceed. That's all we want to clear. It's not just the 513.
Yeah. What are you proposing, Honourable Singh?
Chairperson, I'm therefore proposing, when we come to the next page, where he took his mandate from, and we can just add those. We'll add those resolutions.
Agree.
5.9 and that.
Agree, honourable members. Page 2. Is anyone left out? Page 3. Page 2.
So page 2 on A. The minister took his mandate. This is what he said. Mandate from the recommendation of the previous. Sorry.
Page 2 is just.
Oh, sorry, that's
page 3. Page 3.
On page 2, Mr. Chair, under the Democratic Alliance, Ms. Dreyer is left off. Ms. A. Dreyer. She was a non-voting member.
Yes, and also Mr. Steenhuisen is an alternate.
Yes.
That is how we were informed, yes.
Thank you.
So Mr. Steenhuisen must be indicated as an alternate, and Ms. Dreyer as the non-voting member. Thank you. Page 3. Honourable. Yes.
I think the same in terms of alternates on the ANC list. There are two members, Honourable Mohammed Lala and Honourable Smith, as alternates.
Yes, can we make that correction? We received a communication through the NA table from the ANC that those two members are alternate members. It's Smith and Mahambeshlale. I hope the content advisor is following us with these amendments that we're making, because I don't want to go through that entire process again. What we will do today is to stop at a certain point and say this has now been agreed upon, so that we don't, when we formally adopt the report, go through the whole entire process. Then we'll just do it page by page by putting the page to the meeting. Page 3, Honourable Mulder.
Thank you, Chairperson. On page 3, paragraph mark 2, committee deliberations. The first sentence refers to the fact that yourself were elected as chairperson, and then it goes on with the discussion. But after you were elected as chairperson, there's a very important point that is not captured in the report, and that was that a point in limine was taken by, I can't remember if it was Mr. Maimane, Honourable Maimane, or Honourable Self, to bring to the committee's attention, and a document was also then handed to the committee with a legal argument in terms of why this committee is technically unconstitutional. And that document was handed in as a document to the committee, but the report doesn't reflect to that happening at that stage, and I think the report should indicate that.
It was, in fact, done by Mr. Self, Mr. Chair.
Yes, that's correct. At the first meeting after the election, there was a document that was tabled, and the reason why it was tabled was said that it will be referred to later during our deliberations and discussions as we continue with the work. Is that correct? Honourable Swart?
Well, I'm sure Honourable Breitenbach knows when it was filed, but it was filed on the 23rd of June, which was the next meeting.
Honourable Breitenbach?
That is correct, Mr. Chair, and it was in fact raised also as a point in limine, as Dr. Mulder says, and the point in limine was, you then indicated that we wouldn't discuss it at that point. So this doesn't reflect that the point in limine was in fact raised.
Yes, and at that point, Honourable Self said it's something that the Democratic Alliance will take up as the discussions go on.
Yeah, which we did.
Yeah. So, Honourable Kubai?
It's fine. I think you've covered it. I've got on page 4.
Honourable Mabinda?
Yeah, I just wanted to say Honourable Mbinda from PAC again does not feature. Yeah, it's
So we'll
omitted.
insert
Yeah.
the Honourable Mabinda from the PAC. Honourable Swart?
Chair, I think various parties expressed concerns about the perception that if we participate, we might be giving legitimacy to a process that we might feel was unconstitutional, given the standing of the Public Protector's report. So I think that also needs to be captured. But I think you've done it basically where you say, you could say, I don't know if we're going to mention parties in specifically, but various members of committees raised, because I remember I also raised the issue a number of times. So I think we just need to capture that as well, Chair. And I think we need to understand, are we going to refer to particular parties? Because there was a document filed by the DA, which was also, but it was filed at the next meeting on the 23rd of June.
Okay, now what we will do is, in terms of that specific document, is we'll refer that, you see, once you become a member of a committee, you are the member of the committee now, we'll say the Honourable Member Self, or the DA will work on the wording of it so that we can insert it when we meet again. Is there a proposal, Honourable Swart, how you want to word that? Honourable Breitenbach?
Well, again, Mr. Chair, I must raise that we got the document late. We haven't had time to consider it in any depth or remotely properly. And I'll draft the wording and I'll let you have
Get it to us.
I would also quite like the document to form part of the, or at least the contents thereof to be reflected.
No, it can't be part of the report. We can't, it's a document that was included. It can't be reflected as part of the report.
Not necessarily part of the report, but the contents of the document are not reflected at all. Nobody knows what it says.
We'll refer that the document was given to us. Honourable Swart?
Chair, my proposed wording, and I remember saying that, and I will give it to the drafters afterwards, but it's members expressed their concerns that by participating in the process, they might be given legitimacy to what they believed was a flawed and unconstitutional process, given the Public Protector's report and findings. These reservations were noted. That's
some members.
Some members. Some members. Some members. Some members.
Okay. Can you just make sure that the drafters get it in the so that we insert it at the correct point in the report?
Chair, can it be highlighted or italicized, so we can see where the amendments come in?
Effecting the changes to the document will be indicated. The Honourable Singh did not say you want that part to be highlighted in the report. What he's saying that we must track the changes that we are making. I won't ask members to vote on that, the Honourable Swart. Just now they express an opinion about you. Page 4. Honourable Kubai.
First paragraph, Chair. The Adhoc committee also considered a proposal from Kubai. It was Honourable Tlakute. That needs to be corrected. But there was, I remember quite well, in following the discussion, I think maybe the drafters, I made a recommendation that the chairperson, after being elected, go and consider drafting a report and table a program of how we're going to proceed and table it in the next meeting. So I just felt that needs to be corrected there. Yeah, that's page 4. That's what I'm correcting.
So you want that to be put into the report? As you said, you must also assist us, Honourable Kubai, to just get the wording to the drafters so they don't put their own words in there. Is there anything else on page 4? Honourable Singh, then the Honourable September.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Chairperson, I know the content advisors are experts in drafting reports and the language.
I also hope so.
Right. But, I don't know about the first person and the third person. For example, the private, after deliberations.
Where in the report are you, Honourable Singh?
This paragraph which starts after deliberations. The programme as presented, continue. He reported on the following.
Page 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have I got the right page? Yeah, he reported on the following. Then he says, the minister took his mandate. Now, if it's what he is saying, he reported as follows. Because it was him saying these things, not us.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you're going to, that he...
In his presentation, he reported as follows. Yeah. You can't attribute it to anyone else. Yes, Honourable Kubai. Sorry, Honourable September.
Chair, on page 4, the latter part of the sentence says, these recommendations task the minister to do certain things. I would submit, Chair, either we take the sentence out completely, but if we leave it there, then we must say what the focus areas would be. And I think that it's best to be taken out. Because
it's an overstatement, yeah.
Yeah, the rest of the sentences are covered.
Certain things can be anything. Just remove the sentence, please. Do you agree? Honourable Kubai.
Chair, I would like to take you back to it's the third paragraph. The committee reconvened on the 23rd June 2015. That's where the program was tabled by the chair and was agreed in terms of how we're going to proceed. I think that's important. It needs to be reflected on that day, and that's the day those issues that Honourable Swart was reflecting went into discussion.
That's correct.
And that's when the document by Honourable
was at that point, yes.
was circulated. So that paragraph needs to reflect the deliberations on that day accurately.
Okay. Honourable Swart.
Chair, I think the difficulty that we've got is, whilst these paragraphs do correctly reflect some of what was discussed, obviously it doesn't contain everything that was discussed. So without going through every point and raising every item that, for example, I raised, one should maybe say reported inter alia as follows.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're going to sit, every single member here raise so many points that aren't reflective, just so that this gives an idea that this isn't a comprehensive report of every single item that was discussed. And obviously we've got the liberty to raise those issues that we want reflected here, but I think maybe that might be wiser, or including, you just say the word, I'm talking about in his presentation, he reported as inter alia as follows, or something like that, because just to capture that sentiment. Otherwise, we're going to sit and understand that this is not necessarily a correct reflection of everything that was discussed over the deliberations. So we just need to find a way of capturing that.
Honourable Kubai.
My understanding, Honourable Swart, maybe we can just bring each other through. My understanding of these bullets in his presentation, it's what the Minister of Police has presented, not our deliberations. Yeah, so from A until P, it's what was covered by his presentation.
Out of his report, yeah.
On his report. So it's reflected. Yeah, I thought not what we have discussed. I think what comes as our discussion follows there. what we might need to do is, because I think they pulled these things from that presentation itself. These are the issues that were covered by the presentation.
Well, that was the corrections and review session by the Nkandla Adhoc Committee on their meeting minutes since they started their probe, as they now conclude their draft report on their findings on the security upgrades in Nkandla. We'll have more news shortly after this break. Do stay with us.
It is important for everyone to know food safety practices and make sure that their food is prepared safely from farm to the plate.
Who ensures that there's compliance?
In terms of all the abattoirs, they have to be registered. So when they are being registered, they are actually audited.
Sources of revenue whilst ensuring that the cost of living.
The Minister were not security features. Now that is some members, in this case myself, and I would add there where I specifically mentioned the particulars of claim in the Special Investigating Unit's summons. So my suggestion is just to add there, features with the SIU report also providing a long list of items which were not security measures in Claim B of its draft particulars of claim. That is, you remember I raised that issue and then I still gave the list of those issues. So this is the dilemma as to what degree of how specific you need to be.
Yeah. You see, honourable members, I think, Honourable Swart, you articulated it clearly. It's impossible to capture each and every issue as was raised by each and every member over a full day and then another day in such a report. That's why we have minutes where we don't even have the type of detail that you're referring to now. It's not even captured in the minutes like that. And then we have the recordings, of course, as another fallback position. In terms, it is something fundamental. I would really ask members that we really focus on those salient issues that are important to be reflected. And if there is an obvious omission, of course, then we will ask for you to give us a proposal as to how we insert it in the report. The Honourable Mambashlala and then the Honourable Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm not sure whether Honourable Swart wants to be mentioned by name, because this that is raising is captured on D, where it says some members held the following views and posed questions along these lines. And D says both the public protector and the SIU reports indicated that the items listed by the minister were not security features, something which was raised by some members. So I don't know whether he wants us to amend that point or what. I'm now confused.
I'll come back to you, Steve. Just give me a minute. Honourable Smith.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, on the same matter, I've got a different view, Chair. Right across the report, the drafters attempt to capture certain things that members said. Now, I want to make a proposal, Chair, on after P, after where the minister has done his own thing, for us just to insert one sentence that says, members engage the minister on matters arising from his presentation, full stop. Because that's what we did. Now, if you put one and you don't put anybody else, because the minister has given his, we engage the minister, and all the other matters from A to F and whatever, we just take out of the report. And that is the fashion how we deal with it, Chair, that we indicate after presentations we are allowed to engage. And when we get to our recommendations and findings, we can then argue about which are the salient points. But at this point in the report, we got a presentation, we were allowed to engage.
Honourable Swart.
I would prefer to, and it's subject to the discussions, to have a bit more specific issues raised. I hear with the Honourable Member, and I'm quite happy with D. I don't want my name mentioned. And I think the Chairman has given us guidance that we're not going to mention every specific issue. So I'm quite happy that that reference to the SIU list is excluded. I'm not sure. I don't necessarily agree with Honourable Smith about just say members engaged with the matters rising, but it's subject to further discussion. I think we can accept that we're not going to raise every specific issue, but I think the drafters have taken a lot of trouble to highlight some issues, which I think it is useful to keep both, and it's mentioned in a very oblique fashion. For us now just to exclude it all, then it's basically there's going to be very little report. And when people read it, there will be very little content to what we discussed during the whole process. So, Chair, I'm quite prepared to leave that full stop under D. But my initial feeling is that maybe we should go through each one of these with understanding the guidance that you've given, that we're not going to have specific issues on every issue. But I'm subject to further discussion.
I think what the drafters also had in mind in their brief was to just to capture the gist of the discussion or issues that arose out of it, and not necessarily to give a blow-by-blow account of each and everything that was said, and then the minister responded like this or another one responded. So those are just capturing the discussion very neat and succinctly. If we want to have more detail, then it's going to be problematic, because then the proposal of the Honourable Smith comes then in. But then, as the Honourable Swart also says, it then removes some of the content that will probably arise later in the report again that we will refer to. And I would propose, Honourable Members, that the way that it is captured there is a fair reflection of the discussions that has taken place. Right? And unless it is something fundamental in nature that has been left out, that we stick to the format as it is there. Yes?
You might want to just insert a sentence to say this report does not contain every item mentioned, just as a caveat, if you think it's necessary, you know.
Let's go through the report and then we'll see when we get to that point. Honourable September. I'll come to you, Honourable Kubisa.
Chair, it's not on this point.
Okay, Honourable Kubisa, is it on this point?
No, Chair, I wanted just to say my understanding is that the drafters were trying to capture the salient points. And I should think across the board we may agree that they tried that. But there will be instances, deep fundamental instances, where we'll see that there's something that was omitted. I just wanted to concur that with Honourable Swart and yourself that the drafters were trying all possible means to ensure that salient details are captured.
Thank you for concurring with us. Honourable September. And with me and the Honourable Swart.
Okay, point on page 5, J. If you look at J and you look at L, I'm sure that those two can be merged because they speak about the same things. And I think, you know, what you have in J that is in L, or what is in L is not in J, that can be, because it's really a repeat.
Yeah. Now, L should actually be part of J, you're correct. Anything else on page 5, Honourable Members? Page 6. Still deals there with some of the views and issues that members raised. And then there was also reference to the majority members who posed the questions as it is stated there. It then captures the rest of the discussion around that specific item by the Minister. And then it concludes with the in loco inspection by the committee on the 22nd of July. Honourable Mulder?
Yes, Chairperson, on page 6, number F, refers to the Judge Skipper's judgment, and that statement captured there was made, but the further statement was also made, if we want to be balanced in terms of the report, That was not the entirety of the judgment, and the point was made that the other parts of that judgment was also brought to the committee's attention. So either we should put both points, or we should leave both points out, but we cannot put just one of the points.
From 1994 hitherto. My specific target in this regard is opposition parties who seem to be severely struck by insomnia fever. Maybe I must take this opportunity to welcome Honorable Mania. I hope you'll have less time to dance and more time to familiarize yourself with real issues affecting our financial system. Honorable Chair, since its coming to power in 1994, ANC policy priorities focus on restructuring government expenditure towards social services that will contribute to better life for all South Africans, and putting in place a macroeconomic framework conducive to investment and economic growth. Unlike the ousted white minority regime, which was mainly focusing on improving the lives of few whites, the ANC-led government obsession has been about better life for all South Africans. This includes whites who immensely benefited from the evil apartheid system. The success and sustainability of this progressive expenditure trend requires realistic and practical revenue sources. From the beginning, it has been very apparent to the ANC that the government had to strategically maximize the revenue-rising instruments at its disposal in order to address huge backlogs in social and infrastructure service provision, mainly to the previously disadvantaged communities. Allow me, Honorable Chair, to remind DA and Honorable Menir and Ross that the backlog referred to was induced by apartheid government, from which most of them benefited. Instead of rejecting the bill meant to generate revenue to undo the evil mistakes committed by their forebears, in the spirit of reconciliation and prosperity, I will urge them to at least support this bill. Honorable Chair, as the ANC, we fully concur that the ability of any government to design and implement a tax system hinges on the capacity of the revenue authorities to administer the taxes. Therefore, any shortcomings in the administration of tax legislation and the collection of revenue will adversely impinge on the integrity of the tax system and any reform program. We acknowledge and welcome SARS' introduction of many specific measures to improve the efficiency of tax collection in our beloved country, South Africa. As a result, since 1994, South Africa has realized not less than 80% of budget revenue and consolidated revenue, respectively, accounted for by tax revenue, which is collected by SARS. Measures introduced by SARS have led to the realization of higher than expected revenue collected in most financial years hitherto. Levels of compliance has drastically ballooned, leading to the bulging of the National Tax Register. The introduction of electronically advanced systems like e-filing has drastically reduced the cost of revenue collection. Honorable Chair, SARS' adherence and commitment to its primary mandate is conspicuously evident in the recently released preliminary revenue collection outcome. Despite challenging economic conditions and alleged instability in SARS, they managed to collect 986.4 billion, which is 9.6% growth in total revenue from the previous financial year. Important to note, honorable members, is the fact that the recorded revenue performance was made possible by an extraordinary drive by SARS on compliance improvement undertaking under the auspices of its comprehensive revenue plan, which in aggregate injected about 22 billion. This additional revenue compensated for revenue collection shortfall caused by a slow economy. By the way, let me remind this House that doomsayers and less patriotic amongst us predicted a very negative outlook because of the so-called exodus of skilled people and the appointment of a new commissioner possessing no tax experience. Numbers can't lie. We challenge all and sundry to refute these preliminary tax revenue figures. We commend SARS team under the capable leadership of Commissioner Tom Moyane for a job well done in a short space of time. You didn't allow distractions by our freedom detractors to sway your focus from your national duty. In light of all concerted efforts to undermine and erase the gains of our hard-fought freedom, we call on your team to remain firm and focused. Count on our committee for robust oversight and support as we collectively